Good morning. This is Daily Dose with Dr. Lazar, and I am really honored to be with you this morning. The idea of meeting with you regularly and chatting is something that had been on my mind for a while, but it wasn't until this year that I decided I would make it a priority and pull the trigger on it. So thanks for those of you who continually join in, who comment, who share. I very, very much appreciate that. But here's the deal. I'm here for you. There's nothing in it for me, and so if I have a life experience or something that is happening, I'll share that with you, and hopefully you'll find value in that. But that's the reason we're doing this. So, how much evidence do you need? I talk to people all the time about different stuff, whether it's their health, whether it's our services, whether it's a marketing thing, or I mentor and coach other people, and so sometimes people will provide resistance and say, I'm not really convinced. I don't know if that's the case or not. So the question that I ask people a lot is, well, how much evidence do you need? Like I was in a panel discussion one time, and there was a pediatric cardiologist on the panel, and he had just had open heart surgery. And so I did my research, and he leans over right before this panel starts, and he said, there's no clinical evidence for the efficacy of chiropractic care with children. So pediatric chiropractic care, he basically is saying pediatric chiropractic care is bogus. Well, that is probably the closest thing to fighting words somebody could say to me, because kids need chiropractic more than anybody else, because they're still growing and developing, and it works with the nervous system and things. But I had done my research on him, and I said, well, how much evidence would you need? And he said, there is none. I said, that's not what I asked you. How much evidence would you need? And he said, well, it would need to be something legitimate. And I said, so what would you accept? That's what I want to know. Not that his opinion is a standard, but there's a philosophical conversation I was having with him. I said, what would you accept? And he said, well, you know what I'm saying. Like, he couldn't. I was looking for something specific. Like, I would accept a double-blind, randomized clinical trial, which is the gold standard in research. He didn't bite. So I said, would you accept a double-blind, randomized clinical trial? And he kind of looked at me. I think he was surprised that I knew that, which is weird, but that's neither here nor there. And he didn't say no, he didn't say yes, but he was still engaged. He was more engaged. And I said, do you promise, if I can provide evidence, that you would hold my evidence to the same standard you hold your evidence to? And he said, what are you talking about? Now, the reason I was asking him this, it was a total setup, because I was about to go somewhere, and he was going to paint himself in a corner. And I said, if I mention something to you, will you hold us both to the same standard? Will you hold our work to the same standard? And here's the point of it. I said, that open heart surgery you just had, and he stopped and looked at me, and I said, where's the randomized clinical trial, a double-blind randomized clinical trial for that? And the reason I asked him that is because it doesn't exist. You can't, in research, and that's not the point of the conversation, but in research you cannot do open heart surgery on one person and not on another person, and the patient might not know what happened, but the doctor would know. And so double-blind means the doctor and the patient, or the researcher and the subject, neither of them know what they're giving or doing or whatever. So it doesn't exist. But I said, not only that, there's no randomized clinical trial about the efficacy of parachutes either. But we make clinical decisions based on logic and past research. So here's my point for you. There was a guy that said, I've searched, it's famous, I've searched high and low all over the earth, and I don't see any evidence that God exists. And the person he was talking to said, well, that's absurd. That's like me taking apart a violin and setting all the pieces and saying, I see no evidence of any music here whatsoever. So the question I would ask you is, whatever it is you're facing in life, If it's fear about uncertainty with your health, if it's an economic uncertainty, if it's a health problem, if it's a relationship issue, if any of your accounts, physical, emotional, spiritual, relational, intellectual, avocational, if any of those accounts are not where you want them to be, then what changes are you willing to make? But the biggest excuse you might be using is, well, I don't have enough evidence that that will work. Here's the deal. Success requires action. And if you're not sure what to do, don't worry about there not being evidence, because sometimes there's not going to ever be enough. That's the whole purpose of faith. So either take the next best step based on what you heard last. Just keep going in that direction. Or if you feel like there needs to be a pivot, then pivot to where you think makes the most sense. If it's not the right direction, you'll course correct. Last point on this, if you turn on a one-way and you're going the wrong direction, you don't floor it and you don't beat yourself up. You don't keep driving the wrong direction and say, I cannot believe I'm going the wrong direction. This is ridiculous. You don't say that. You stop the car, you put it in reverse, and you go the other way. You pull into a parking lot, and then you turn and go the right direction. Life is exactly the same way. We are all, I assure you, in situations we didn't plan on, we weren't prepared for, we didn't sign up for. And the truth is, it's totally okay. It can work out however it needs to work out, and we can be okay. If you're walking around waiting for the next shoe to drop, newsflash, it's going to. You can be hunkered down and living in fear, or you can say, you know what? Happiness is an inside job. It has nothing to do with my circumstances. And I'm gonna have a great time. I'm gonna enjoy whatever cards I'm dealt. I'm gonna choose that I'm gonna be okay with that, and I'm gonna make the absolute best out of it. So next time a decision comes up that you're facing, and you're saying, well, I don't know how much evidence there is about this, let that go and ask yourself the question, how much evidence do I really need? If something makes sense, let's do it. If it doesn't make sense, let's not. And let's enjoy our day. This has been Daily Dose with Dr. Lazar. I'll be back tomorrow. I hope you have a fantastic day.